This is Fox Gypsy Design, and I'm going to show you how to color this paper mask. You can find the template at my Etsy site, etsy.com/shop/foxgypsy. Here you can see all the pieces laid out. If you want more instructions about how to color the templates, look for my other video on how to assemble the paper masks. More specifically here, I have the nose piece, and I've cut some separate pieces to add some color to the nose. I've got a piece of the red here that matches the rest of my mask, and I decided that I wanted white underneath so that most of my snout looked white around the edges with the red on top. I looked for photos of foxes and found there was a lot of different types of variations. In mine, I decided to do a couple little black pieces along the edges, overlapping the kind of orangey brown color that I have here. All the other pieces that you see surrounding this nose piece are the other parts of the template that I'm going to cut out in black so that I have the edges for my ears and around the eyes. I also cut out a little nose out of gray and put some little black pieces in it to make the nose kind of pop out a little bit more. In the end, I decided not to do any coloring on the black pieces or the white, just on the red. Here I've assembled the pieces. Once again, if you want more instruction about how to assemble, check out my video on how to assemble the paper templates. Be careful not to cut yourself with the scissors. Notice how I spread my fingers out below it so that they aren't anywhere in range when that blade goes through. I also don't push down very hard. I actually let all of the work happen from just the twisting of the scissors. You can also use a set of hole punch to get into the center, and then create a little hole like I'm doing right now and to insert your scissors into. I'm doing this one a little different than the other ones by actually going around the edge and doing little snips, little fringes basically. So what I'm going to do is we're looking at the back side of this template or this mask, and I'm going to fold over all those little fringe pieces that I just cut. And what that's going to do is when I glue these down and flip it over to the right side of the mask, there'll be a nice little black edge around the eyes. So it makes a nice clean line around the edges, and you don't see the red on the inside of the eye edge. On the front side, I'm leaving things flat for the coloring, so I'm going to mark where my ears are going to basically attach to, so I have a reference point of where to start coloring. I started out with the white pencil inside the ears, radiating out from the fold, so it's kind of in a little quarter of a circle radiating outwards. Start out light. When you're working with a colored pencil, the pressure that you put on a pencil will determine how light or dark a color is. So I started out light, giving kind of a feathering effect, and then I just drew in a few sharper lines here and there, going in the direction that the fur would go. The fur inside of the ears tend to be longer and kind of fuzzier, so that's why I did this softer lines first and then a few of those longer streaks. We'll come back to the ears later with some of the other colors that we're going to pick out here too. A note about all of the fur that you're creating, basically the texture that you're happening here, is that the fur on the animal kind of radiates out from a center point, and that center point is right between the eyes. So here you can see I've taken a piece of scrap paper, the same color as my mask, and I'm going to test out a bunch of different colors, starting with the red, to figure out what colors are going to look best on my fox. Once again, you may want to look at those pictures online to see what colors you want to add into your fox. I started out with the darkest color, which was sort of a burgundy color, and I noticed in the pictures it was a little darker towards his forehead, just in the markings. And there's kind of like that little mark sometimes you see that's just over the eyebrow that kind of looks like a little sharp eyebrow. Kind of design to add into there. Also, down from their corner of their eye, I also saw some that had like a little mark going down, so I kind of added that there. I'm focusing on those areas where the shadows would be at most, which would be around the eyes and then around the edges of the whole mask. Remember, I'm going from the center point outwards, that center point being between the eyes, so I'm making these small little hash marks. I've sped up the video, so don't try to color it quite this fast, obviously, but I figured you would get bored watching me color for an hour. Don't forget to also add lines to your nose. The lines on the nose are going to be even smaller, more like little dots or dashes because the hairs are much finer there. I'm adding in to our ears again, and this really dark color added between some of the more sharp white lines is going to help give you some contrast and make it look like there's a little more depth to those ears. Here I am going around the edges. Remember, you're going outwards from that center point, little scratchy marks. Now I've picked up the red. That one's going to go kind of overall, but I'm starting out around the edges and all those areas I've already worked on before. So I'm starting from the darkest areas and working towards the lightest areas. By doing this, I'm going to add a lot of depth, and by using more than one color, that's going to really make it feel realistic. So once again, from the center point outwards, lots of little lines covering a large area, and I want it to show up more red. So I initially chose this lighter colored base color paper underneath because I knew that I would be coloring on top of it and that the red pencils would bring out the textures, and that base color underneath was sort of a medium color in between the dark colors and the light colors. Always start out with your pencil pressure being kind of light because you can always go darker. You can't really erase colored pencils, especially on a special paper. It will kind of ruin the paper. Add some details up into the ears, and whatever you do to one side of the mask, you do to the other. And once again, if you want to try to use this template, I have it available on my Etsy site. There are other masks also available there, and I have another tutorial that shows how to make a paper mache mask using this same template for the fox. A paper mache mask can last a lot longer than a paper one. And while the coloring on this is very impressive, because it's just paper, it's not going to last very long unless I do something about trying to seal the paper and make it sturdier and stronger in some way, whether it be with a lacquer or some other product that creates a finish that will make it stronger. Don't forget about the nose. Once again, little dots and dashes. I'm working towards the center line on that one, but it is still angling towards that center point between the eyes. So going up the nose and towards the center of the nose. I stayed away from putting anything on the white, and I didn't add the black details or the nose on just yet. I decided to leave those details to be put on last. That way I could do the coloring underneath and not have to worry about trying to get around the edges of something else that's been glued on there. Next I chose a gray. If you look at some of the pictures of foxes, you'll see a lot of different grays and sometimes blacks. And then at one point I decided to swap to a different gray because this was kind of too warm of a gray and I needed a cooler looking gray that was going to kind of pop out my highlights. So you can see that I'm focusing more now in those areas that I've kind of left alone that were going to be my highlight areas. So you can really see now that it's starting to kind of look three-dimensional, even though this is still the same flat piece of paper that we started out with to begin with. So here's a lineup of all the pencils that I used, plus the white. And I'm going to add the white just to give them one more little pop out here and there. And I can always work back and forth across all those colors. So if you didn't get enough of one particular color, just go back and add some more of that color. You can always add more. So start out with just a little and then work your way up. So now I'm going to assemble it. And there we are. This is Fox Gypsy Design. Thanks for watching. I love creating. Please leave me comments and let me know what you'd like to see more of. This fox mask template is one of a set of 4.